Never in my wildest imagination when this season started did I think I'd be sitting here on December 8th going, I can't wait for this fucking season to end. The Eagles fall to 8-4 after an overtime loss against the Chargers in LA. Jalen Hurts was horrible. 4 interceptions, 5 turnovers. He had 2 interceptions on the same play, which is borderline impressive. It's much of the same. Shockingly, the positivity bunny changed nothing. There was some good to take away from this game, but ultimately they lose. And somehow I actually think that them losing might end up being the best thing for them, and I'll explain why. But let's get through the good first. The defense was great, I thought, for a lot of this game. Their defensive line was incredible. Jalen Phillips was great. Jordan Davis, I need to do another apology to him because he was a standout in this game. He flashed repeatedly in this game. I thought the Eagles should have had probably 8-9 sacks. The way that they were able to get to Justin Herbert. Credit to Justin Herbert for being able to evade the pressure. His pocket awareness was incredible, and his ability to continue to either prolong the play and get the ball downfield or just pick up a first down with his legs. I think stat-wise he wasn't great, but he made one incredible throw to Trey Harris where he was rolling to his left, threw across his body, ended up hitting him in stride where only he really could have gotten the ball. Like, he was really, really good considering the fact that he had a broken hand that was surgically repaired a week ago. He was pretty damn good. But I thought the defensive line did really, really well in this game. I thought the defense as a whole played well. The running defense early on really struggled. Much of the same thing that we saw against Chicago, but they ended up getting it together. And the fact is, when your defense allows 19 points in regulation, you should be able to win this game when you have weapons like Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley. You should be able to win the game. Again, the Eagles fail to score 21 points. And the fact that this team is failing to, they're struggling to get to 21 points is amazing to me. But yeah, the defense was really, 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 really good. Other than that, Brayton Covey was good. He looked good on returns. Big marked improvement from Shelton Gibson. Oh, God, I'm struggling with that. That's about it. The early play calling to Saquon Barkley was strong. He was running to his left side, the strength of the offensive line, and you saw immediate results from that. And then once again, when they ended up running up the middle or running to the right, there wasn't really that pop that you saw. But we did finally get a home run touchdown from him that you thought maybe could spark the offense, because it was the first time really all season where I saw Saquon Barkley look like last year's Saquon Barkley, and then obviously it didn't, because turnovers are going to turn over. And for the second straight game in a row, Jalen Hurts was just not good. Now, when you needed him most, I thought in overtime he had that really, really nice throw to Devontae Smith on 3rd and 16 that ended up getting them a key first down. But obviously the ultimate play was he tried to fit the ball into a tight window. It gets tipped. And then credit to the Chargers, I forget who it was, but credit to the Chargers defensive back who picked the ball off, because it was not an easy reception for him, but he was able to secure the win for the Chargers. There was also the play that went through A.J. Brown's hands right to the defender. I don't really put that on Jalen Hurts either, but the fact is, when you throw that many picks, even if you take away 2 and you go, those aren't your fault, the other 2 were, and the fumble was. So he just wasn't good. He wasn't good for the second straight week in a row. And, the reason why I say maybe this is a good thing is because had they won this game, we would have gotten Nick Sirianni up there saying, see, all that matters is winning. All that matters is, it doesn't matter how you do it. It matters is winning. And I like the toughness of this team, and I'm mentally tough. And a lot of football. There's not a lot of football left, Nick. And as I record this, he's probably at the podium now, telling reporters, there's a lot of football left and it's on us coaches to fix it. The play calling was still questionable. 3rd and 9, they're throwing to the flat. They would have won the game, by the way, and this can't be ignored. They would have won the game if Jake Elliott had hit a field goal. Now, Jake Elliott doesn't miss any field goals, so he's allowed to miss one every once in a while, okay? But he missed a field goal. My gripe isn't the fact that he missed the field goal. My big problem is that they had 10 seconds to get a little bit closer. They knew that they had 10 seconds to get a little bit closer. And their play call was to throw out to the flat to Will Shipley. Shockingly, They weren't able to convert that at all. It remained a decently tough field goal to make. He misses it, and we saw what happened there. If he makes it, obviously, they win this game. But it's the play call that led up to the missed field goal that I have a problem with. You couldn't come up with anything else. Now, to give credit, I guess, to Kevin Matula and Nick Sirianni, there were more slants out in the middle of the field. I did appreciate that. It was costly at times. I mean, the first interception with Jalen Hurts, I don't know who he was throwing the ball to. He threw in essentially double coverage and it was picked off. But at least I saw what I've wanted to see all season, which was A.J. Brown over the middle. They got Dallas Goedert involved. I didn't even know he was on the team. He'd been invisible for like 3 weeks. But the play calling was still questionable at times where you were like, what the hell was that? There was a play call late. I forget exactly what it was, but it was similar to the 3rd and 9 play where it's like you're throwing out to the flat. It was Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith out in the flat with no blockers on a key 3rd down. Luckily, he didn't catch it because he would have been killed. But it was still head-scratching play calling at times. The offense is still not in sync. They're not going to get it right. It's just a fact. It is too late in the season. The ship has left. There is no fixing this. All right? You have lost 3 games in a row. You were, and this is why the comparisons of 2023 are out there, because in 2023 it was like, oh, they're 10-1. And then 10-1 became 10-2, and that became 10-3, and then they're losing games to Drew Lock. And it's like, okay, you can sit there and tell me that the Chargers are a good team because they're 8-4. And when you played the Bears, they were a very good team, right? I mean, they're losing against good teams. But then when you blow a 21-point lead against Dallas in Dallas, but you still blow a 21-point lead, when you struggle consistently to put points on the board, when you're getting in the red zone and all the fans are like, here comes the field goal unit, because we're just assuming that you won't be able to punch it in, there is an issue. And there is zero confidence that the coaching staff will fix any of it. The touchdown run by Saquon Barkley was nothing more than a fluke. And we found that out. There are problems up and down this roster, and I talked about it. And I think personally, the big problem was that Howie Roseman did not have a good offseason, and you saw what happened in this game. Because when you look up and down, you go, okay, the offensive line struggled. They struggled to get a run game going. Tyler Steen, not very good. Again, Cam Jurgens had a costly penalty of a holding call that luckily Jalen Hurts got him out of by that key 3rd and 16 play. Jordan Mailata had a key holding call that could have been ticky-tack, but still, it took points off the board. Like, the offensive line hasn't been good. They haven't been healthy, but they haven't been good. The decision to let Darius Slay go for Adoree Jackson, like, when you look at all the decisions made, Josh Sweat leaving for Josh Uche, who, by the way, was a healthy scratch, some of the guys that he let go, like Darius Slay, are on the street right now. Some of the guys that he let go, like Mekhi Becton, aren't playing well for their respective teams now. Honestly, they're just the Chargers. But it's hard for me to imagine that Mekhi Becton in this current system wouldn't be better than Tyler Steen. It's hard for me to imagine that Darius Slay wouldn't be better than Adoree Jackson. It's worth mentioning, I thought Adoree Jackson played really well this game. But I'm talking season-wide. You let C.J. Gardner-Johnson go. You might be missing that energy a little bit. But then again, the defense is not the problem. The biggest problem with this team is that Howie Roseman allowed Nick Sirianni to handpick the coordinator. And he handpicked a guy in his coaching tree instead of going out in there and getting a proven commodity. And they should have stepped in, just like they stepped in with Doug Peterson a couple years ago. And they said, no, we're not doing Press Taylor. You need to go find a proven guy. They should have done that with Nick. They gave Nick too much credit following a Super Bowl win. Fine, you can pick your handpicked guy, knowing full well how it ended. And that's what makes this so much worse, is that after 2023, you would think that they'd know how to stop it, and they don't. I'm Alan in The Hangover, waking up in Bangkok going, oh my God, it happened again. They don't have any clue how to stop it. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel, and they're coming up with big inflatable bunnies. This team is fucked. They are cooked. They will make the playoffs, just like they did in 2023, because they were able to get all those wins early on. And they will tell themselves the sky isn't falling. Go watch Hard Knocks. They did a whole recap on it. Oh, the sky's not falling. I mean, listen up to the sky's not. Okay. You are the dog in the burning building saying this is fine, and it's not fine. And again, to watch that offense struggle to get 19 points when they couldn't even get, you can't even get 21 points. Can't get 21 points. Please subscribe. That'd be cool. Please just do it to help out a fellow Eagles fan. Even if you hate the Eagles, just subscribe and just help me out. That'd be cool. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Comment what your biggest problem is. Hopefully, well, hey, at least it's a short week, right? Like at least like it's like tomorrow's not Monday. We're closer to Friday. Go Birds. There it is, Phillies fans. Kyle Schwarber is back 5 years, $150 million. That's an AAV of $30 million per season. And I'm not surprised. If you follow this channel long enough, you know that I've been saying time and time and time again that I had a better chance of being on the Phillies next season than Kyle Schwarber not being on the Phillies next year. That's how confident I was that this man would be back in pinstripes, not just for what he adds on the field, but for what he adds off the field as well. I think baseball is the ultimate vibes sport. I think that these guys are around each other constantly, and all you ever hear out of the Phillies locker room is how important Kyle Schwarber is to the chemistry of the team. This is also a man, though, that on the field in his Phillies tenure has averaged 47 home runs a year, and that is power that you do not come by. You think about it, okay, well, 5 years, he's, 33 years old right now. At the end of the contract, he'll be 38. Will there be a drop-off? He's a DH. There's not going to be a lot of wear and tear on the body. And if there is a drop-off, what is the drop-off? Is the drop-off he's hitting 30 home runs, getting paid $30 million? Okay. Because I think in 5 years, that'll probably be close to the norm if a salary cap isn't implemented. Now, this is all contingent on that. I remember when Bryce Harper signed his massive 13-year contract and the AAV was $25 million, I said at the time, like, that's a steal. Because in 2 years, that contract's going to be one of the, top 30 in baseball. In 5 years, it might not even be the top 50. And you look now and, decent players are getting $25 million, but they're not at Bryce Harper level. You saw what happened with Zach Wheeler. He's getting paid $40 million, like 41 maybe, 42, whatever it is. So the salaries have completely gone up, where I'm not worried that in 5 years you're going to go, oh my God, this contract is so bad. Like even Nick Castellanos is $20 million. They'll be able to get her out of that. But if they're stuck with $20 million from Nick Castellanos, like, okay, that's what happens. Like that's really the only bad contract I can think of where you go, like the production isn't even coming close to what he's getting paid. But when you look around baseball, because of the fact there's no salary cap, there's a lot of contracts where you go like, oh God, like that's rough. I don't see Kyle Schwarber's in 5 years being one of those because I don't see that the power drop off is going to be that dramatic where you go, holy God, like this is bad. They're paying him $30 million to hit 20 home runs. Like I just don't see it. I don't see that happening. The other move that got made today was Rob Thompson signed a 1-year extension. I'm not a huge fan of that move. But then again, I was somebody that wanted them to move on from Rob Thompson after the last postseason, where I thought that a lot of his moves were just the wrong move. I thought they needed a change, but Rob Thompson is really well liked in the locker room. He's well liked by the players. I just kind of viewed, at this point, Rob Thompson a little bit like Brett Brown, where when there was no pressure, okay, he wins and it's great. But when there's pressure, i.e. we're spending a ton of money, we're going out and getting top-level free agents like a Trey Turner. There's expectations there. He's come up short. I didn't think Dave Roberts did a great job either. Dave Roberts ends up winning the World Series, but I thought Rob Thompson's decision-making in the NLDS drastically cost the Phillies. But I think the next domino that you'll see fall is JT Realmuto back. And the reason I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I'll repeat it on here, the fact that they did not really give Rafael Marchand a chance to establish himself as anything. I mean, I think he had like 120, 30 at-bats, if that. The fact that they do not have a future catcher, they traded him, Eduardo Tait, in the deal to get Joan Duran. And most importantly, they've talked glowingly about the fact that the staff is very, very comfortable with JT Realmuto. I give a lot of credit to Caleb Cotham for the progression of guys like Jesus Luzardo and guys like Christopher Sanchez and guys like Ranger Suarez. I'm sure the Phillies, though, would point to JT Realmuto and say, yeah, but you got to give him credit as well for what he's been able to do with some of these younger pitchers and bringing them on. And when you have a guy like Andrew Painter coming up, who is, I think 23, he's expected to be here, if not next season, at the latest the year after. Don't you want a guy like JT Realmuto with him behind the dish, helping him out and helping him into, becoming a major league pitcher? But also,
you could do a lot worse than JT Realmuto with a bat as a catcher. I think Rob Thompson has driven him into the ground, and I've talked about that a few times, just with how much he plays him behind the dish. And I think it's hurt his production at the plate. But still, even with the hurt production at the plate, if you give me a really, really good defensive catcher that my pitching staff is very comfortable with, and he's going to hit 240 and he'll hit 15 to 20 home runs, like steal 10, 15 bases, like I'll take that. I'll gladly take that. I would see him getting anywhere from 20 to 23 to stick around. I think they're probably going to have to pay a little bit more to keep the years down. So I wouldn't sign him for more than a 3-year deal, maybe with like a club option. But I think he's the next guy to drop. And then after that, I'm not sure, but they need outfield help. But haven't overly. I think though the $30 million, you look back and you go, man, Dave Dombrowski really fumbled this because he clearly tried to get Kyle Schwarber on a discount coming off of a 30, I think he had 37 or 38 home runs in 2024. And he clearly tried to sign him to a discount. The agent didn't go for it. And he was like, all right, go prove it. And then every home run bumped it up. So I think the Phillies probably, if Dombrowski didn't fumble this, probably could have saved $5 million a year. But at the end of the day, like, okay, they didn't pay $40 million for him. I like the contract. I like the length of the contract. And more importantly, I like what this does for the Phillies in their clubhouse, i.e. getting a guy back that is just that magnet for positivity and a guy that everybody enjoys coming to work and seeing on a day in, day out basis, and the glue in that locker room. Again, I think baseball, because these guys are around so much, the ultimate sport where you need a guy like that. When you get that and the production at the plate, this is a no-brainer. I'm excited to see, though, what other moves are going to come down the pipeline with the winter meetings. It was kind of cute how, the Mets are involved. Man, I wonder who floated that rumor out there. Probably Kyle Schwarber's agent. But all roads led back to Philly, whether it be Cincinnati, whether it be the Pirates offering a contract all of a sudden. Like, didn't matter. And at the end of the day, I think Kyle Schwarber being back was the most obvious move out of all the moves of the Phillies offseason. And now you look at, if he was the 1A, you look at the 1B being JT Realmuto. He'll be the next domino. After that, I don't know. Please subscribe. Subscribing is cool. A lot of people are doing it, and people are having positive impacts on their lives by subscribing to this channel. Please. Thumbs up, thumbs down, comment what you think of the contract. If you think it's a bad contract, good contract. And then my thoughts on JT Realmuto, if you agree with that or not, and then what you think the next move should be. Go Phillies.
Does the UFC have a superstar problem? Now, with UFC 323 in the books, we now have a long layoff, which means we can discuss these trivial matters. I didn't do a pre or post for UFC 323. I had stuff going on and hand up. Like, I didn't finish UFC 323 until 6 a.m. because I had stuff going on the previous night. But it had me thinking, and it's a conversation I have with a buddy of mine, because every time that this is presented to Dana White, of course, he laughs it off. Like, we don't have a superstar problem. But I really think the UFC does have a superstar problem. And I think the main event result of UFC 323 set in place what the UFC was desperately hoping for, and I will expand on that in a second. Now, when you look at the pound-for-pound rankings of the UFC, and we'll go through it, I think it highlights the fact that they have a giant superstar problem. Because the best in the sport are not the people that anybody wants to see. And the proof is in the pudding. The first Paramount card, when you look at it, UFC media is ripping it apart, and diehard fans are ripping it apart, because you have an interim title fight between Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett, where on the surface as a fan, you go like, are these guys really deserving of a belt? We just saw Arman Tsarukyan, who is the number one guy in the division that isn't Ilya. We just saw him run through Dan Hooker. He deserves a title shot. Like, what is going on here? Again, though, they have a superstar problem. So let's take a look at the UFC rankings real quick. The number one, obviously, is Islam Makhachev, who is unequivocally the number one pound-for-pound fighter. I don't think you're going to find anybody in the UFC. I don't think you're going to find any journalist that covers MMA. I don't think you're going to find many fans that will argue this. He's boring as fuck. Like, if I never watch Islam Makhachev fight again, I will be okay with it. He's never once sold me a fight. I've never been excited for the next Islam fight. The only Islam fight that I could think I'd be excited for is if he fought Ilya, but Ilya is selling that fight. It's not Islam selling that fight. Because as I sat there watching UFC 322 and watching Islam ragdoll JDM, I was pissed. I was pissed that I was sitting there watching what I figured was going to be 25 minutes of a snoozer, of Islam grappling, holding him down. There's not much action. It's total domination, okay? Total one-way traffic by Islam. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is not entertaining. And I'm a little bit of a not a contrarian, a hypocrite, because I do like watching Merab fight, but I do think that there's a difference between Islam. He gets you down, he holds you there. He's not really going for a finish, but he'll take it if the back is there. I mean, his most exciting win was knocking out Volkanovski in the second fight, but the first fight, many people were like, I think Volk won. Now, I don't. I didn't think Volk won at all. I thought he won a round, and I thought he looked good, and I thought he gave Islam his toughest fight yet. But the fact that Volk lost that fight and came out as the storyline tells you all you need to know about Islam. And I had the same problem with Khabib. Like, Khabib was dominant, no question, but he bored the fuck out of me. And I feel like, for the most part, a lot of fans probably feel more like me and less like the diehard, hardcore purists of the sport that love watching this guy grapple fuck people. And the fact is, when you are trying to sell your sport to a casual, Islam Makhachev is not the person you're going for. The number 2 on that list is, and it's Ilia Topuria. The problem with this is that he already said he's not fighting in the first quarter of 2026. And that set up this interim title fight between Patty and Justin. So the guy that is really the person that you're trying to build up as the best, because he can sell a fight. He's a great talker. His knockouts are impressive. I mean, he's killing legends out here. As a bug flies past me. What is that? It's like a gnat. But he's not fighting till 2026 April at the earliest. And you're probably waiting for a super fight at that point between him and Islam, I'd assume, because you need it. So I think he's the closest guy that you go, okay, if you're, and this is the way I think it in my head, if I have a buddy who's never watched MMA, how do I get him involved in the sport? I would tell him, dude, watch this guy. Like, he's unbelievable. Like, he's going to just absolutely murk people. It's going to be really impressive. He's cool, calm, and collective. Like, he has an aura about him that we haven't seen in a while. And it's like a Conor McGregor type prediction that we haven't seen since Conor McGregor. I mean, the idea of, like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to correctly predict it. I'm going to knock you out. Oh, you've never been knocked out? Doesn't matter. Like, that, Ilya is special, and he's the closest guy. But after that, though, and these rankings are old because they haven't been reworked, and they'll probably be reworked once this video is out, ironically enough. But number 3 on the list is Merab. I love watching Merab fight. I think Merab is extremely entertaining. And I think a prime example of this is in the Petr Yan fight. He picks up Yan, he's got him on his back. Instead of just slamming him, he's like egging on the crowd. He's talking to Dana White, kissing Sean O'Malley's back. Like, even Sean O'Malley was like, I can't hate Merab, because no one can hate Merab. But is he somebody the UFC is actively going to push? What was the big storyline coming into this fight? Was it Merab versus Yan 2, or was it, oh my God, Merab is defending the belt 4 times in a calendar year? That is insane. That was the fight. Like, that was the selling point. And I think the UFC was thrilled that Merab lost. I don't think they have anything against Merab. But what Merab losing does is sets up Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley. And make no mistake about it, this man just defended the belt 4 times in a calendar year. He will not get an immediate title shot when he 100% deserves it. 1,000% he deserves it. And you've already seen Petr Yan say, I think he needs to win one more before I give him a shot. Because Petr Yan knows the money fight is Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley is the closest thing that the UFC does have to, like, a, before I spoke out of turn. I said Ilya was the closest thing to McGregor. Before that, though, it was O'Malley. Like, O'Malley was telling you, like, I'm going to knock this guy out. And he's got that knockout, the aura about it, all that. And then obviously Ilya comes along and, like, he's doing it at another level. But this sets up a fight between Petr Yan and Sean O'Malley that sells itself, because the first fight, I had it for Yan. I thought it was extremely close, but I thought that Yan won the fight. I think you can tell by Sean O'Malley's face after the announcement was made that he was surprised he won the fight. That was only 3 rounds. This will be 5. If Sean O'Malley goes out and beats Song Yudong, he will end up getting the next fight. The UFC will tell Merab, hey, you defended the belt in 4 times. You fought, I think, whatever it was, like 5 in a calendar year or whatever. Take some time off, and we'll get you back in. But make no mistake about it. When Petr Yan steps in the cage, the next time, he will not be fighting Merab. He will be fighting Sean O'Malley, barring Sean O'Malley winning against Song Yudong. The worst case scenario for the UFC is that Song Yudong ends up winning that fight. But the UFC knows that Sean O'Malley is a superstar. Because in the UFC, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. You have an ability to bring in fans. Sean O'Malley has that. You know, the casual frat boy that doesn't really watch UFC a lot, he will watch Sean O'Malley. So the UFC, I think, was thrilled Merab lost because of the fact that Petr Yan can now get out there and fight Sean O'Malley, where selling a Sean O'Malley versus Merab 3, that doesn't sell. I mean, there's no storyline there. Merab won both, and even Sean O'Malley was like, I don't really know what to do at this point. I mean, you know, he's killing everybody. So I think that was the best thing that the UFC could have hoped for, is Petr Yan wins. Number 4 on the list is Khamzat Chimaev. All right, dominant, champion. But the fact is, he goes out there and, I'm going to smash ya, boy. I'm going to smash everybody. It reminds me of Khabib coming out and just yelling chicken. You know, you're trying. There's a little bit of charisma there. But the fact is, this is the fight game. And the fighting only goes so far. You do need the mic skills. And Khamzat doesn't have that. Now, I think Khamzat, you're able to sell him to a casual fan just by saying, yo, this dude is so strong that he broke Robert Whittaker's jaw. But at the same time, he is so dominant in, I think, a weakened division that you look at the division, you go like, I don't know who gives him a fight. I really don't. And on top of it, I think he's fighting in the wrong weight class because he always has problem making weight, and he doesn't fight often. So while he is dominant, and while I think he does draw in the casual fan at times, there's not a lot of competition. He's not good on the mic. He doesn't fight often. That's a recipe for disaster. Alexander Pantoja is on this list. Obviously, that's probably going to be fixed a little bit, or he'll be bumped down. I love Pantoja. I love watching any flyweight fight, honestly. I mean, they're always exciting. They rarely are a snoozer. I'm looking forward to Pantoja versus Josh Van 2 because of the fluke accident. But I think one of the issues that you'll see with this top 15 is a lot of these guys aren't American. They speak through translators. And thus, even if they are trying to be charismatic, it falls short because they're doing it through a translator. And they're not able to get their message fully across. Petr Yan's come a long way in learning English so that he can talk shit and sell a fight. And you saw that where he didn't need a translator to speak after winning the belt. Unfortunately for Alexander Pantoja, he does. And I do think that hurts him in being able to sell, which then hurts you in being able to claim that you're a quote-unquote superstar. After that, Alexander Pereira, he's great. He's incredible, and it's very impressive to watch. He is, in the cage, extremely exciting. Outside of the cage, he is a robot. He ain't selling shit. He's not talking up anything. You're never rushing to see the Alexander Pantoja media scrum. You're never rushing to see Alexander Pantoja's press conference. You don't give one fuck about Alexander Pantoja after he wins and what he has to say, because there's nothing to say. You know, he just doesn't have the ability to get on a mic, and I don't think he cares. I think that's part of it. But also, he's another guy that speaks to a translator, and I think that does hurt him. His in-ring ability, yeah, and I think that you can sell a super fight between him moving up to heavyweight and going for, a third belt, and it's very impressive. But make no mistake about it, the other guy would be having to do the majority of the media legwork to sell that fight, while the UFC overhypes hey, this guy knocks out everybody, and he's impressive, and he's going for a third belt, and all that. And that is great, but is that a superstar? I think you need both. I think you need in-ring, and I think you need mic skills, and I don't think he has both. I think he's got in-ring, obviously. After that, Volk. Volk, I think is. The problem with Volk is he is the 145-pound champion with Ilya out there. And this, to me, is the same problem that Daniel Cormier had when he regained the lightweight belt and everybody knew that the rightful lightweight champion was John Jones. You can get out there with your belt, and that is fine. The problem is we've seen what happens when you fight the literal champion. He gave you that belt. He gave it up. And for Volk, the problem is he lost once, to Ilya. Got knocked out, didn't look good, wasn't all that competitive. And again, Ilya does that to everybody. But Ilya got bored with the division and moved up because the UFC needed somebody. They needed to sell a fight. So they were like, well, Ilya, you get up there. We can sell you. It opened the door for Volk to get his belt back. And I love Volk. And I think Volk is very charismatic. And I love the fact that when he loses, he owns it. And he does it in a funny way. And I think he's great. But once again, the problem with Volk is if he never lost to Ilya, I would say he is your superstar. Because he is probably the greatest featherweight ever. You know, at least he's in the conversation for sure. He's top 3 at the lowest. But when you know that there is a guy that at any moment can come back down and whoop your ass, tough for me to be like, that is a superstar. And I will watch any Volk fight. Like, Volk fights are fun and they're competitive, and he is a guy with great mic skills. It's just the fact that he's fighting in the division and he has a belt, and I look at the belt as being somewhat hollow. And then, all right, moving on, and then next on the list is Tom Aspinall. He's the best heavyweight. He fights in a shallow division where you look up and down and you go, okay, he's going to fight Cyril Gane. I guess in the first 2 minutes or whatever that fight lasted, Cyril Gane looked okay, but I think everybody goes, Tom Aspinall's probably on another level, and he probably would have pulled away eventually. At least that's the way I look at it. And then after Cyril Gane, where do you go from there? Are we good to give it to Alexander Volkov? Oh, okay. I mean, he's deserving. But to me, when you look at heavyweight, it is Tom Aspinall and kind of everybody else. And that leads for the John Jones conversation, but it's pretty clear that John Jones is running from Tom Aspinall. So you can make the case that Tom Aspinall is a superstar, fine, but he doesn't fight frequently, and that's not totally his fault because he waited for John forever. So I think the casual fan goes like, okay, and I think activity does matter, but I think the casual fan's like, when's the guy fight? We don't know. And then he got his eye poked. When is he coming back? We don't know. But I think that, and this is something I'll talk about in a little bit with the White House card. The White House card to me needs to have, ideally, an American. Like, you need an American headlining. Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria are not going to headline the United States White House card. Not in this administration. I'm sorry. Like, logically, there is no way with the political landscape and everything going on with immigration, all that they're going to allow 2 guys on visas to get in there and fight. It's just, look, I don't care about your political status, and I'm sure you don't care about mine, and I'm not trying to get political, but I really believe that's just a fact. And what that leads you to go with is Tom Aspinall, a Brit, against John Jones, an American, the 1776 thing, the Revolutionary War, it writes itself. But the next thing is like, well, who do you find? Well, there's always been an aura about the heavyweight division. There's always been that thing, oh my God, the heavyweight champion of the world. You're not probably going to have, when you think about it, like a Piotr Jan versus Sean O'Malley at 135 to headline the White House card. I think that would be a banger of a fight. I'd love it. But I think ideally you're going to look at an American versus an American heavyweight. There's only really one, and that's John Jones. He wants to come back. But is that going to happen? And that would be the only heavyweight fight that I think interests a lot of people. Because I don't think anyone's lining up to watch Cyril Gane versus Tom Aspinall. And I'm talking the casuals. Yeah, the diehard, like, I'll watch it, sure. Because I watch every card. But the casual isn't like, man, I got to watch the next Cyril Gane fight. And the other part of this argument is we all know that probably the guy that Tom Aspinall should be fighting isn't even in the UFC, and that's Francis Ngannou, who is a superstar. But then he went to PFL, and he just fell off. And by falling off, I mean out of the public spotlight because nobody watches PFL. So I think that hurts his superstardom, if you will. Drickus is on this list at number 9. Okay, got mauled his last fight against Hamzat. I think Drickus can sell a card. I think he's very charismatic. He's the number 2 guy in the division, and it wasn't even close. All right, moving on from that. Is there anyone else? All right, here's probably the guy where I go on the top 15, as currently states as I make this video. He is a superstar. Max Holloway. Max Holloway will sell any fight. Everybody will watch a Max Holloway fight because you know that you're signing up for a banger of a fight that is not going to be boring. The highlights of Max Holloway speak for themselves, whether it be yelling at Daniel Cormier while evading punches from Calvin Kattar, counted up, I'm the best boxer in the UFC, whether it be trying in mid-fight to show Brian Ortega how to defend punches because he's battering him so badly. And then finally, the highlight of all highlights, Justin Gaethje pointing down to the cage and then knocking him out with 1 second to go. That man's a superstar. He just is. I don't care when he's fighting. That is appointment television for everybody. And I think he's the closest guy. But this is part of the problem with the UFC is when you look at some of the superstars and you go, okay, Max Holloway, is he the best in the division? No. But he's a superstar. And that's why they need to make up these bullshit BMF belts, because they know that they have superstars on their roster that aren't necessarily the best in the division. And if they put those guys in the cage, it's probably not going to be great for their quote-unquote superstar. And we already saw that at the press conference with Volk and with Volk and Max, where one of the media members like, you guys are sitting next to each other, is there any chance? And they kind of shut that down because they fought 3 times already, and it's been Volk, Volk, Volk. So when you look at the champion of the featherweight division, it is Volkanovski. What would Max Holloway have to do? And also, is that a fight that a lot of UFC fans want to see? Max going for a 4th time against Volk, and the chance to see Max lose for a 4th time? I don't know if I want to sign up for that. But I think when you look at the superstars of the UFC, the biggest ones have had mic skills, and Max is one of them. And my biggest example of this is when you look at the BMF belt. What was the BMF belt created? Well, it was created by a journeyman fighter in Nate Diaz who had incredible mic skills, who gets out there, he sells himself for a Conor McGregor fight after beating Michael Johnson. Conor McGregor, you're taking everything I work for, motherfucker. I'm going to fight your fucking ass next. Well, RDA falls out. Nate pops in, journeyman Nate, and he ends up shocking the world. I'm not surprised, motherfucker. He says it as calm and cool as can be. He's got an I don't give a fuck attitude that fans gravitate towards. Do they care about his record? Absolutely not. Do they care that he is a journeyman fighter? No. But he wins one fight. He gets out there and he says, Jorge Masvidal is a gangster, but he ain't no West Coast gangster. Well, at that point, Jorge Masvidal is a journeyman fighter with the same kind of cool aura about him of like, I can fuck you up at any time. I don't really care. It's nothing to me. Hands behind his back. 3-piece in a soda against Leon Edwards, which I still want that fight. And then you've got the highlight knockout of Ben Askren. And that's the thing. These guys that have mic skills, they pair it with a highlight never forget moment. And for Nate, it is the shocking the world against Conor McGregor. And then for Jorge Masvidal, it is the knockout against Ben Askren. And then the subsequent, banging on the octagon and all of that. And you pair those and their mic skills, and it ended up getting Jorge Masvidal not 1 but 2 title fights that he probably didn't deserve against Kamaru Usman. One of them being on late notice because he's, as the nickname indicates, game bred. Credit to him. And then Nate obviously became an immediate fan favorite, where when you look at the Leon Edwards fight, he got his ass beat for 24 minutes, but no one remembers that part. They remember the 25th minute, or in the 24th minute, when he tagged Leon Edwards and he just pointed at him and started laughing, but he was too tired to actually go and finish the fight. The mic skills ended up making these guys, the mic skills along with the moment ended up making them superstars, where that the casual fan knows who they are and wants to see them fight. And that's why we have a bullshit BMF belt. And the UFC capitalized on it, credit to them. But Max Holloway is of the same ilk. He's not a journeyman fighter. That's a big difference. He's like one of the best to ever do it. And Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz are never going to make anybody's top 10 list. Max Holloway is, though. And I think he's the closest guy you have on this list to a superstar. All right, moving on from him, JDM, I think we all saw what happened to JDM. I can move on. And the boss, although JDM is as boring as hell. Like, I can't tell you one JDM interview that was compelling. No one, again, if this is similar to what I talked about earlier, is lining up to watch a JDM presser. The guy has zero personality. After that, Magomed Ankalaev, okay, no, same thing. Not overly compelling. Enjoyed watching him get knocked the fuck out by Alex Pereira because I don't think that he's the best in the division, and it was nice to be proven that. I thought Pereira had an off night in the office, but I don't find Ankalaev remotely compelling in the slightest, and I don't think I'm alone in that. I don't see the next Ankalaev fight being one that anyone's really being like, oh shit, I gotta see him fight, because it's like he gets in there, he's got decent stand-up, decent grappling, zero mic skills, talks to a translator. Yeah, I'm out. Arman Zarukian. Arman comes out and says, make it make sense when the Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje fight gets announced. Well, it's not hard to make it make sense, and I said this in another video. You pulled out of a fight day of your title fight. You pulled out day of, bud. Day of, where we were forced to watch Islam take on Moicano. And everybody knew how that was going to go. And it went just as everybody expected. There's also the fact that you only fight once a year and that you're not all that compelling. You're not all that interesting. You're not all that entertaining on the mic. You're a great fighter. You're not selling shit. You're just not. After that, you've got Charles Oliveira. I think Charles Oliveira could be a superstar, but he talks to a translator, and I think that hurts his case. But I think when you factor in what he's able to do in the cage, yeah, you could probably sell him to a casual, but I think the lack of ability to speak in English, I think, does hurt. And this isn't like a, oh my God, learn the language thing, but I just think for this argument, I think it does hurt the superstardom when you're not able to translate your in-ring ability into mic skills. I think it does hurt. And then after that, rounding out the top 15 is Bilal Muhammad. And do I even need to say it? Like, Bilal Muhammad is very, very talented. He's great. Decision Bilal is not selling much. And he tries. Like, he actually does try, and I'll give him credit. And he's got, he comes in with the sunglasses and all that. But I think he's a guy that has okay mic skills. His in-ring skills, while great, are not something that you're telling your buddy, you have to watch Bilal Muhammad fight. Because it's going to a decision. And his last fight wasn't great. And that's rounding out the top 15. Which brings me to the point of, does the UFC have a superstar problem? Absolutely. And that Paramount card is a prime example. The Paramount card's made, and it's quote-unquote superstar after superstar after superstar. And the problem with the superstars is they're not the best in the division, and they're not close. And they throw Paddy Pimblett in there against Justin Gaethje. Two guys that casual fans know, two guys that casual fans will watch, and one guy in Paddy Pimblett that they can easily make into a superstar, who is on the cusp, if not, he's already there. So you have two guys who can talk, whose highlights speak for themselves, and then you can put a belt on them. And thus, they are a superstar, right? You're selling that. And that's why they got this fight. It wasn't just their in-ring ability. Make no mistake about it, or in octagon ability. It was the fact that these two guys are compelling. They are compelling because they have the mic skills. And I think the UFC ideally wants to set up Paddy versus Ilya because of the bad blood that happened like 3 years ago at a hotel. But that's why this fight is being made. But this also highlights that the fact that the UFC, when you look up and down and you look at their list of champions, you look at it and you go, not a superstar, not a superstar, not a superstar, not a superstar, not a super. That is an issue. When the best in the world are not superstars, that is an issue. And that's why you get Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. I'm never not going to want to watch a Justin Gaethje fight. He's never been in a boring fight, ever. Dating back to World Series of Fighting, this guy's never been in a boring fight. Paddy Pimblett, while I've been critical and shit on him, the guy can sell a fight. People want to watch Paddy Pimblett. My buddy, who has never really watched UFC, is walking around in Paddy Pimblett gear. That guy sells. Sean O'Malley sells a fight. So ideally what they want to do for the UFC is come out of this with Patty with the belt so that they can face off against him and Ilya in the second quarter of 2026. And they want Sean to win so they can have Sean go against Piotr Jan to regain the belt so that he is once again the champion, because Sean sells more than Merab. Even though I love Merab, I love watching Merab. I think Merab is extremely entertaining. The dude is a fucking character. But Sean O'Malley is a superstar. Merab is not. And I think when you look up and down and you look at deserving people to fight, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez, is that the right fight to make? No. But Evloev is never selling a fight. He's not. I mean, you look up and down, like, the flyweights are always going to be the co-main event. Outside of UFC 301, they're always going to be the co-main event. So then you look at Bantam, as I said, you've got Merab. He lost. They're thrilled about that. Featherweight, we just covered it. Ilya at 155, but he's not going to fight for the second quarter, but he's the closest thing I think you have right now in terms of the champions to being a superstar. Islam Makhachev is about as compelling on the mic as NPR and in ring skills. While incredible and dominant, they're not selling anybody. Nobody's signing up to rewatch the Islam Makhachev highlights. Hamzat, we talked about him. Alexander Pereira, we talked about him. Tom Aspinall, like, that is a problem. And then with the women, I mean, Valentina's great, but she's so dominant. We saw it in the last fight that while I like watching her fight, you're not texting your buddy like, you got to watch Valentina fight. And then the other problem is, too, she's always going to be the co-main event. You've got Amanda Nunes coming back. I think she is a superstar because she knocked out Ronda Rousey. And then you can pair that up against Kayla Harrison. But she is the closest thing that the women's division has. And then Mackenzie Dern, not a superstar. So, in closing, the UFC absolutely has a superstar problem. Meaning when their stars are not the best in the world, and the case in point is the first card on the Paramount card, not featuring these people, not featuring champions, featuring interim title belts, that's not a great look. Yeah, the UFC absolutely has a superstar problem. What made Conor McGregor a superstar was the fact that he's going out there, he's predicting when he's going to knock you out, he's doing it, and then he went out there and knocked out Jose Aldo exactly how he predicted. Then he goes out, wins his second belt against Eddie Alvarez, main eventing an MSG card. And then obviously the wheels fell off and, cocaine gets involved and it's, the boxing and all that. But that guy got people into the sport. He got people watching. Where then all of a sudden it was like, okay, I'm watching the McGregor fight, but I'm also watching the undercard. And this guy's really interesting. I'm going to watch him next fight. And next thing you know, you're watching every fight. And I say this hand up because McGregor got me into the sport. When I heard McGregor talking about his ancestors swinging a pickaxe around, I was like, I've tried to get into MMA before. Didn't really work. I got to see this guy fight. And I ended up watching him against, oh God, what was his name? He was like a journeyman fighter. I can't think of it. I'm drawing a blank and I don't want to I don't want to end the video. But I ended up watching that fight. And he goes out there, and it's going to bug me because as soon as I end this video, I'm going to think of it. But he goes out there, starches the guy in the second round. What sold me on McGregor wasn't the fact that he starched him in the second round. And it wasn't necessarily the highlight, the commercial to promote the fight sold me to watch the fight. What then sold me to watch McGregor's next fight was him jumping out of the cage and screaming in Jose Aldo's face. And I, at the time, a super, super casual, once again, haven't watched more than 2 UFC fights ever. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, but I need to watch those 2 guys fight. That's a superstar. And then he goes out and does what he does. So the UFC doesn't really have that guy right now. The closest they had was O'Malley. O'Malley gets mauled by Merab. Not a great look. And yeah, that's why you have the Paramount card the way it is. So I think absolutely the UFC has a superstar problem. They're still printing money. They'll still do okay. But when people say, does UFC have a superstar problem, and Dana White laughs it off, just know inside he's probably crying. Because he knows that they do. Because when you look up and down and you go, the pound for pound best in the world ain't selling shit, that's an issue. I know this is a long video, probably the longest I've ever done on one particular topic by myself, but subscribe if you could. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree. Who is the closest thing in MMA right now to a superstar? I think there's an issue that when Conor McGregor, who hasn't fought since Epstein was alive, when he comes out and wants to get on a White House card, and he is still probably, when you ask a casual person on the street, name UFC fighters, he's probably, if not one, as low as 3 to be mentioned, and he hasn't fought in forever. That's an issue. But yeah, let me know if you agree, disagree, who you think. I don't know how to end these. Goodbye. Hard Knocks NFC East episode 2 just dropped, and my big takeaway as an Eagles fan is I was surprised. Like, I was legitimately surprised, and in a good way. I really expected this episode to highlight how tight and how wound up the NovaCare complex was for the Eagles, and it was kind of the opposite. Now, it wasn't the vibes that you saw in Dallas, but Dallas at that point was riding high. They're partying on the sidelines and in practice, and everything was high energy and it felt good. But even just the overall mood, it really wasn't the doom and gloom that I kind of expected and the doom and gloom that you hear. Now, to credit to the Eagles, credit to the coaching staff, including the guy that I shit on all the time, Nick Sirianni, they said that in episode 1. Hey, if you leave outside of here, it seems like the sky is falling. And look, I'll be the first to say, the sky is falling. Like, this is a shit show. They're in their second collapse in 3 years. It's not good. But I fully expected a more, like a pressing team, and I didn't get that. I will say my big disappointment with this episode was simply that HBO did not highlight enough Jalen Hurts, because I've been a big defender of Jalen Hurts for 2 or 3 years now. I mean, I was, and hand up, like, I'll tell you right now, I was not a believer in him, but I became a believer. And all the Tanner McKee stuff that's coming up, like, a lot of fans want to see Tanner McKee. I don't see it personally. But there's no hiding the fact that the last 2 weeks, this guy has been brutal. He's been really, really bad. He's looked like rookie Jalen Hurts. And it was capped off by a 5-turnover game against the Chargers, where you go, okay, if you don't have 5 turnovers, you're probably winning that football game, right? And to not see his reaction to some of this, to not see the interactions on the sidelines with the receivers and whatnot. Like, we saw that in episode 1. We saw him not be on the same page with Devontae Smith, and we saw that interaction. It made me personally feel a lot better about the situation. Was I happy about the fact that it's week 13 and they're still not on the same page? No, but at least he talked. At least it wasn't a situation that I think a lot of Eagles fans fear, which is Carson Wentz 2.0. Because a lot of this is repeating itself, right? You're getting 2023 2.0, and then you're worried about the quarterback becoming Carson Wentz 2.0, and then you're worried about the wide receiver becoming T.O. 2.0. So for HBO not to just show a little bit of his mood and his reaction to all of these turnovers, and show the reaction also to his teammates to all of these turnovers, I think they really dropped the ball with that. To defend them a little bit, they had a quick turnaround on this. The fact that the game happened on Monday, it goes into overtime, and they were able to get this out on Tuesday, credit to them on that front. And I do wonder if this was a normal Sunday game, would we have gotten that? And the other takeaway that I had, which was a positive one, was, does A.J. Brown seem like the kind of guy that doesn't like being here? I just mentioned that a lot of Eagles fans, I feel like, have PTSD when it comes to A.J. Brown. They're so terrified that he will become T.O., that he will be a distraction in the locker room. He'll be a diva. He'll want out. He'll be this, like, cancerous cell that infects the entire team. No, he's in Acme buying people groceries. Him and Devontae Smith are joking around. And ironically, it was about a plane crash. I found that kind of very ironic, actually. The ship is sinking, and they're talking about, okay, well, if a plane crashes, how do we get out of here? But overall, he didn't seem like this diva that I think the media wants him to be portrayed as, because they're desperate for a storyline, or at least they were for a while. Now the storyline is the team is collapsing again. Before that, if you've noticed, by the way, that storyline went out the window. That whole A.J. Brown being a diva, that has gone out the window. Now the storyline is, oh my God, the team's collapsing. Isn't that kind of funny how that happens?
But look, he took ownership of it. He took ownership of not making plays when it mattered. He didn't have a great game. The ball went through his hands. He's usually a sure-handed wide receiver. It happened twice. It happened one time in the end zone. That would have been the go-ahead touchdown. But the fact remains, this team, since the bye week, is averaging 16 points a game. They're struggling to score touchdowns. They get in the red zone, and I, as an Eagles fan, go, okay, Jake Elliott, get him ready. You can make every excuse in the book on why this is happening, but the last bit of whatever you want to call it, like, it's late. It's like 3 a.m. right now. I'm cooked. But the last thing that I found really interesting was, and I wonder how much of this is the fact that this happened in the first 15 plays, or the fact that maybe my theory on this has been incorrect. But if you've been following this channel long enough, you know that I am a firm believer that Nick Sirianni is meddling once again in Kevin Patullo's decision-making. I base this off the fact that this offense looks a lot like every time Nick Sirianni has ever touched the offense. His first year as head coach, when he was the play caller, looked like a lot like this. Uncreative, very predictable. And then he overruled Brian Johnson in 2023. That is a known fact. It is out there. Tim McManus from ESPN.com, one of the most respected Eagles reporters, he reported on the collapse of 2023. And one of the things he said was, well, Nick Sirianni would overrule Brian Johnson. What I found interesting in this particular episode was early in the game when they had Saquon running to the right side or left side and doing it, large chunks of yardage, and it looked like the old Saquon. He said, Kevin, keep doing it, meaning, it just appeared at that moment that maybe his hands were off the play calling for that particular moment. So I wonder how much of that, though, was the fact that it's the first 15 plays. I would love to have seen the entire video of Nick Sirianni on the sidelines. I go back to, though, I don't know what the guy does, other than come up with these like cheesy speeches about why we love football. To me, it's like he's Miss Lippy from Billy Madison. It's like a feel-good kumbaya thing. I can't believe they didn't cover the positivity bunny. Like, that's how desperate this team is, or at least you thought. But the vibes seem to be good. I was impressed by that. The only negative I can come away from this episode with, other than the loss, obviously, and the way they played, but coming away from behind-the-scenes stuff, was multiple coaches kept bringing up, like, we can't point fingers and, we got to get back on track. It wasn't necessarily get back on track, but it was more like, this is how we're going to do it. And, get the train back on the tracks. I'm not doing a good job of articulating this, but it was one of those where they kept saying it so much that I felt like there's no way doubt hasn't crept in on this football team. They kept pointing out, like, hey, season's not over, and, and this is how we're going to get back on track. We can't point fingers. We can't point the blame. We got to play as a brotherhood. And it's like, how many times can you hear that before you go, like, all right, well, are people pointing the fingers at me? I mean, overall, I don't know how much we learned from this episode. I think that had to do with the Monday night game. I think the best part of the episode, honestly, was Zach Ertz getting honored by the Commanders, and they showed that video of, like, the 87-year-old Kansas football player. That was hilarious. I was cracking up on my couch watching it. But for the Eagles standpoint, I didn't learn a ton. But my big takeaways, surprisingly, were semi-positive, and I didn't expect that because I am tired of this football team. Can't wait for the offseason. Don't enjoy watching them play. I'm probably not going to enjoy watching the Raiders game. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And I don't know who it was. I'm usually pretty good at picking up the voices, and I'm assuming it's somebody from WIP. But somebody on there, when they were pointing out, like, how the Eagles are in first place, and but yet, there's panic in the streets. Somebody correctly pointed out, like, they're not winning the Super Bowl. Shit, they're not even going to the Super Bowl. And it's like, yeah, they're not, because it does feel like it's 2023 all over again. Nick Sirianni did make a good point, though. They won 4 straight, they lost 2. They won 4 straight, they lost 2. The problem is now 2 has become 3. And they just haven't looked good at any point. So I thought the energy was good. And then the game happened. What are the odds that Jalen Hurts ends up turning the ball over 5 times again? Pretty slim. I think one of the best parts about Jalen Hurts' game is the fact that he doesn't turn the ball over. So I feel like he might have gotten all of those turnovers for the rest of the season out in one game. I expect him to be better, much better. But yeah, overall, I expected a little bit more doom and gloom on the sidelines or testy attitudes and pressing. I didn't get that, but what I also didn't get was a win. So that was disappointing. Please subscribe to the channel. That'd be really cool if you could do that. You don't have to watch any more videos. Just subscribe. Subscribing is awesome. Hit thumbs up if you like this. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked for whatever reason. I'm going to go now. But as always, go Birds.